And here we are.
Remember that? Happy now?
Yeah. Remember that feeling you had as a kid when you stood at the top of the stairs and you knew that Santa came?
Yeah.
And my parents would pull this gag where they go downstairs. They say, "Let me make sure he came." They were going down to turn on the lights and make sure everything was good, even though they knew it was good because when they went to bed it was good. But you sit at the top of the stairs, you're like, I'm peeking around. That's what I feel like. I'm standing at the top of the stairs, knowing full well Santa came, and here we are, Christmas morning.
It's a little late, but hey, it's a Friday night. At least 2 of these 4 10 o'clock games are on the weekend, right?
Yeah.
So.
I don't give a damn.
You don't.
I don't care. Could have played him at midnight tonight. I'd have been fine. Now, granted, I took a 5-hour energy about an hour ago. With the good.
Oh, okay. That explains a lot.
Down the hole.
Yep. No wonder you're so awake.
Yeah. Well, I was tweaking my sleeping habits. Tim Saunders texted me last night at like 12:30 and said, "Hey, are you awake?" And I was like, "Yeah, because the puck doesn't drop tomorrow night till 10, so I got to stay up late and sleep in."
That's the person I want to get that text from. But I
digress. Usually at 12:30, you probably shouldn't be texting me. But I had to help him out with a technical issue. But I digress. Here we are. The stream-only portion of the pregame show will join our radio partner, 93.3 WMMR, tonight at 9:53 for the official pregame show. But it's Jason Myrtetus at the home studio. I've cleaned it. I shampooed the carpets, Smitty.
Shampooed the carpets?
Oh, yeah. It looks good in here.
I can't remember the last time. I mean, I have mostly hardwoods, but that's a foreign concept to me.
Well, if you want to be disgusted by what you've been living in, shampoo your carpets.
Oh, okay.
And see what comes out.
Good to know.
But studio's all clean. Here I am in the home studio. You're in Vancouver in British Columbia. Yeah. Give us a shot of the ice there if you can.
Yeah, everybody's sick of seeing me, so we're gonna flip this around. But it is it's been a gorgeous day here in Vancouver. We managed to get here, before it got cold, obviously, with this little trip in October. We are not going to show you. Oh, sorry.
There you go. Now we're a little too high.
Yeah, I've lost the window that shows me where I'm pointing this thing at. There we go. It is a gorgeous place to be in the fall. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I bet.
It is. I don't know why this is mirrored. It shouldn't be mirrored, but anyway, here we go.
That's all right.
That's what was throwing me off. They've already had one game here, so it's not their home opener or anything, but they are honoring Alex Edler tonight. And so there's a bit of a buzz here around that. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing here, but something to the effect of maybe signing a one-day contract and retiring as a Canuck or got rid of the mirror. It's always a big buzz when Flyers come up here, no matter where they're going. And I think there's certainly a buzz around the team across the entire league because there's been about 19 or 20 games so far in the NHL, and nobody's seen the Flyers yet, and everybody's waiting to see what Matvei Michkov can do in a regular season setting. So that is, of course, the big thing today. And we are, kind of eagerly anticipating, but it does come against a pretty tough test here in the Vancouver Canucks, who are, of course, are a very good team. However, Flyers the only team that the Canucks didn't take a point from last year. So whatever that was, hopefully we can continue that tonight.
Yeah, in the 2 games the Flyers played the Canucks last year, they outscored them 6-1. They won their home opener against them last year 2-0. And then they got a 4-1 win on December 28th against the Canucks. And, they went on. They were a really good team last year. They're a team that I think can do some damage, maybe even get to a cup final coming out of that. West is going to be tough. A little early to make that prediction, but they're a team that may be in that mix. That's the pedigree that they are. But, Brian, you brought it up. It's Matvei Michkov, and obviously the preseason, he was the biggest storyline here. He was the biggest storyline of the offseason, frankly, as well, rightfully so. And during the preseason, he didn't do anything to tamp down his expectations on the individual player because he had 7 points in 3 games.
It was it's funny because I was looking back at the preseason and 7 points in 3 games. It almost felt like you didn't even notice really. It felt like like normally you'd see that number and be like, "Whoa, holy smokes!" But with him, it was almost expected, which I think is good and bad. I don't know that he's going to certainly keep that kind of production going on night in, night out against NHL teams. He saw a couple of lineups that were a little bit of weaker caliber, but he saw a couple of lineups that were very close to NHL caliber in the preseason. So, I think that it's definitely going to be a feeling out process here. He's going to come out here tonight and probably this road trip, and perhaps have to kind of find his way a little bit, especially on the defensive side of things. But it seems like the defensive side of things is a lot better than maybe some people thought it would be. So we're just really excited to see him, to see Jet Luchenko out here in his NHL debut. Sam Ersson is the bona fide starter coming into this year. So a lot of great things to watch for here, and we're excited to get started, of course.
Brian, it is very rare that you get two NHL first-round picks to make their or their NHL debut in the same game. Obviously, Mishkov was the 2023 draft, and Jet Luchenko was the 2024 draft. It could have been three had Cutter Gauthier not been traded and not played a game last year. That would have been remarkable, but that he was. But still, you have Luchenko and Mishkov making their debut in this game, and I know that's just a rarity around the league to see two guys, 18 and 19 years old, jumping into the greatest league in the world, the most unforgiving league in hockey, and to make that jump is remarkable. And the thing about it is, Flyers have a lot of young players. I think they have 12 players, 25 and under. Yeah,
that's definitely the case. Actually, it's only the fifth time that it's ever happened in Flyers history to have two first-round picks, rather, make their debut in the same game. And the last time was Ivan Provorov and Travis Konechny back in 2016. Now,
after 1 year a junior for each of them.
Right, that was not neither of them. That was the case that they came right out of junior. They had that extra year. Before that, you have to go back to 2005 when it was Jeff Carter and Mike Richards, and again, both of them had seen some time at the lower levels. Jeff Carter had played in the American Hockey League the year before solely because of the lockout. And Mike Richards was in Kitchener. Would they have been in the NHL in that 04-05 season if it had happened? Maybe, I don't know. But, before that one, you've got to go all the way back to 1978 for this to happen. And Ben Wilson, Kenny Linsman, and a guy that I'm not familiar with, to be honest with you, Daniel Lucas. The Flyers apparently had three first-round picks in 1978, and all three of those guys made their debut that fall. So you're right; it does not happen very often at all. And it's especially when you're, a lot of these teams, right? They get in situations where they trade their picks or whatever, and don't even have first-round picks for a while. For the Flyers, that hasn't been the case, but they have had a couple of issues with first-round picks not panning out, and so this is great to see these two guys out there at the same time.
No doubt about it. The 12 players the Flyers have that are 25 or younger in their season opening lineup. This is courtesy of Jordan Hall from NBC Sports Philly. Does a great job cataloging these. Ryan Poehling, 25. Tippett, 25. Morgan Frost is 25. Ersson, 24. Farabee, 24. Zamula, 24. York, Brink are both 23. Forster and Drysdale are 22. Mishkov is 19. And Jet Luchenko is 18 years and 51 days.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a rebuild right there.
That's the crazy thing for me, is that you don't walk around this team anymore and look at Joel Farabee and think of him as a young player.
No.
Because he's been here for so long. Ryan Poehling, you don't think of him as a young player. So, that's even more promising, I feel like. The Flyers have all these guys that have, considerable experience at this point, but still have a long runway left in their careers.
Yeah, I remember a key moment in Zamula's career when the Flyers went to the bubble after the 1920 season and the pandemic lifted. They took him to the bubble to practice, and we thought that was a big deal because of what they thought about him, and they wanted to help his development.
Right.
That feels like a guy was in high school then.
Yeah. I forget where I was bringing that up the other day. I think we had a premium seating event the other night, and Scotty Hartnell and Kimo Timonen were there, and we were talking with some of the fans, and that was one of the things that came up is that, Matt Michkov is here, obviously trying to get acclimated and everything, and probably the person that's helping him the most is Yegor Zamula, and the path that he took to get here. I mean, he was one of those guys that earned an NHL deal out of a rookie camp as an invite, and then, to what you alluded to with the bubble, the Flyers were limited to the number of people they could take to the bubble. I forget what the number of players
was 25.
It was 25 or 30 guys. So they actually had to use a spot on him that could have been used on somebody else. But if, not only did they think it was going to be a valuable experience, I think, for him to be there, if he wasn't there, he wouldn't have been doing anything. There was no hockey being played at that time of year. So, I think at the time that kind of showed what they thought he could be. And, here we are now in 2024, almost 5 years after the fact. I think we're starting to see that come along. And it's just another example, I think, of why you have to be patient with some guys, especially when they're defensemen.
Yeah, Blue Liners for sure. It is the Flyers pregame show. We'll join our radio partner on 93.3 WMMR tonight and tomorrow night as the Flyers are going to drop the puck on the 24-25 season in Vancouver against the Canucks, a team they went 2-0 against last year. Vancouver did lose their opener the other night against Calgary, where the Flyers will beat tomorrow to take on the Flames. Bri, in today's Flyers Daily episode, 2 episodes ago, on Thursday's episode, I said, as we sit here, that was October 10th on that day, I said, I don't have the Flyers as a playoff team. We look at these 12 players under 25. There's not a lot of additions other than Michkov and Luchenko that came to this team in the offseason. They weren't in that position just yet from a salary cap standpoint, and they didn't make any significant trades. So you're going to have to get growth from younger players, from guys like Farabee, guys like Brink. Well, obviously, we're going to depend on Michkov quite a bit. But as I was kind of looking at it, going, okay, right now, who are they going to beat out to get into the playoffs? What is this going to look like in the Eastern Conference? 87, 89 points is likely not going to be enough this coming year. Can they get into that 91, 92, 93 range? And I came up with 8 different numbers that I thought mattered for them to do it, to defy my prediction on October 10th. And the first one is an obvious one. It's the power play. It certainly looked better in the preseason, but now we're into the regular season beginning tonight. We don't see Sean Couturier on the power play. We see 4 forwards and 1 defenseman on both units.
Right.
That's got to be something that leads the way and starts off leading the way post-haste when this season begins tonight.
Well, I think one place that you're going to see Matt Michkov perhaps make the biggest difference, if you had to pick one area of the team where he might make the most impact this year, I think it is the power play.
Facilitating.
Just the fact that they're going to have him as a threat out there, again, it's going to take some adjustment, but I think that's going to be the place where he most naturally can help this team is on the power play. And again, we've discussed it. There's not much further downward you can go. The law of averages would state that they're going to go upward on the power play. There's also been a renewed focus for these guys on the non-5-on-5 play. And John Tortorella has spoken about this a couple of times this preseason. He did it again today where, you'll recall last year there's certain times where the Flyers would find themselves in like a 4-on-4 situation.
It happens more often than people think.
And it felt like nobody knew what they were doing.
Yeah, because they didn't.
Yeah, because they didn't work on it enough. And this team, again, over the last 2 years, this team spent the entirety of the first year on team defense. I'm not even sure they worked on the power play until December. Last year, the focus was on transition offense, and connected to that was the penalty kill. But they didn't really spend a whole lot of time on 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 4-on-3, stuff like that. And, Torts has said this, he said it, I think it was his first press conference of camp, that bothered him all year because he felt like he didn't put the team in a position to succeed in those situations. And now he is, from that going to put a renewed focus on that. And you're right, it happens a little more often than you'd think. And even if it only happens a couple minutes a game, if it results in, 7 or 8 goals against over the course of half of a season, those are the points that make the difference getting in or out of the playoffs. So
Totally
that's going to be another thing I think where you see an improvement this year.
Yeah, I mean, think about how many times you're on the PK and then the other team draws a penalty 30 seconds into it. Now it's 4-on-4. And for a coach, they need to know what combination of players fit that situation. What 2 forwards and what 2D can we put out there to exploit the rarity of a 4-on-4 with a more open ice? That's all it is.
Yeah, and I felt there were a few situations in particular. I can't go back and collaborate them with correlate them with points gained, points lost, whatever. But I do recall a number of situations where there was a penalty, and then a minute or so later there was another penalty, and then in the midst of play, the strength changed. So it changed from a 4-on-4 to a 5-on-4, something like that. And the Flyers looked out of sorts and gave up a goal. And we would ask some of the folks afterwards, like, is it more difficult to switch to a PK on the fly as opposed to switching to a PK off of a face-off? And the answer was yes. So those are the little things I think where they're going to start paying a little bit more attention to that in practice, and just trying to make sure they at least have the basics of how they want to approach those situations.
I thought Torts, and you can tell when a coach doesn't feel comfortable. I thought in those 4-on-4 situations last year, he went safe. And Torts is also the one that coined the phrase, safe as death. In those situations, you got to be aggressive. You got to use your guys with speed. You got to get Tippett on the ice and Frost. Now Lachenko and Mishkov and Konechny. Take advantage of that situation, that there's more real estate and less players to clog it up.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they're able to do that. One of the other key things tonight, we're going to talk about this quite a lot in the beginning of the season. Their goal differential in first periods last year was hideous. They outshot teams by 220 shots, but they got outscored by 100, or I think it was about 90 goals. They got outscored in the first period. They got to find a way to get off to good starts. Chasing hockey games is a recipe for disaster. And, the big shock last year was, oh, my God, look at this team flying in transition. They're not going to catch anybody by surprise with that. But the thing about it is when you play fast in transition like that, it's like how the Rangers play. They take a ton of risk to create offense, knowing they got Shesterkin back there with a big old eraser.
Right.
They're going to have to depend on their goaltenders and Ersson and Fedotov right off the hop here to do the same thing for them.
Yeah, and I felt like a little bit last year, some of that came from the fact that the Flyers, while they kind of morphed into a very dangerous team in some ways we didn't expect, shorthanded being one of them, and transition offense, all that stuff. I felt like they played most of the season as one of those teams that obviously the skill level is not where some other franchises are, but they were a team that was able to go out and play the first period and kind of use it to make themselves better in the second. Now that's something that's going to have to improve. They're going to have to, I get it, slow starts happen, but you're going to want to try to maybe change things up in that first TV timeout if they happen, that sort of thing. You don't want it to go a whole 20 minutes. Will the addition of Lachenko and Michkov help that? I don't know. We'll have to see. But again, we think that a guy like Michkov especially is going to make the players around him that much better. And you have you don't have Sean Walker this year, but you have a healthy Rasmus Ristolainen. So that's a pretty good swap there, and we'll see where things go. The rest of the way. Eric Johnson's going to play tonight, but Emil Andre is on the way because Nick Seeler is still feeling the effects of that blocked shot in the preseason. So it's still a defensive core that's probably got a lot of similarities to last year. It's just a matter of chemistry, and I think a lot of that success last year that they had was due to the chemistry. So it's just a matter of setting that up again.
Yeah, it's one of the things, we talk about in the offseason when we're kind of doing a redux. We go, well, in the Flyers, at the trade deadline, they traded Sean Walker. Nick Seeler got hurt at the same time, and, you're down a third of your core defense. Well, the one thing we didn't mention with that was they were also missing Rasmus Ristolainen. He was kind of out and forgotten, but he's a big part of it. John Tortorella said today, Smitty, he may have had the best camp, and he said something really interesting that I picked up on. He said he's just really aggravated at how much he hasn't played because he's been hurt. And there's one thing I don't want to deal with is Ristolainen. I don't want to deal with an aggravated Ristolainen.
Yeah, he's at his most effective when he arrives in ill humor, right?
Yeah.
Generally, what did he say? Did he say it to you?
Yeah. I want to be piece of shit out there.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not on the radio, so we can say that, right?
Yeah.
I
just gave him a Russian accent, but that's all right.
I have to remind myself he's not Russian because it sounds like a Russian accent.
He's Finnish.
Yeah, he's Finnish. That's an element that the Flyers are going to have a little more of this year than they didn't have last year.
A little more bite.
Hopefully that's going to slow down some of the momentum maybe off these first period situations.
Yeah, I think he's a big element going into this season, Ristolainen. And obviously another guy that we've talked about quite a bit is Jamie Drysdale. I remember seeing his media availability at the very beginning of camp on the day of the skate pry, and he'd looking up there. I think I was sitting with you and Timmy maybe, and I said, well, he looks a lot bigger. And then I pulled him aside after for a one-on-one interview, and I said, you hit the gym pretty hard. And he said, I played last year at 178. I'm now 196. And you can see he has put on a lot of muscle.
Yeah, there's no
the
question.
Key for him is to be able to handle the rigors of the season and stay available.
Yeah, he looks like a different player. I also may have put on 18 pounds this offseason. I don't think any of it was muscle. Mm-hmm. Might have been net loss in muscle. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I'm not sure that he's played in the NHL at his full potential yet, whether it be injuries or where he was in Anaheim, that whole situation. I don't think we've seen him at his full potential yet in the National Hockey League. So that is another addition to this defense that even after the Flyers acquired him last year, they did not have.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You look at it, and there's a lot of variables here. Let me see how much time we have. How much time we got there, Rye?
Not
10
much.
seconds.
10 seconds.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, 10 seconds.
That's well timed, Jason.
I'm going to take off. That was luck. Yeah. My headphones are all tangled. Hold on. Here we go.
Welcome to behind the scenes of a radio broadcast.
All right. 178 days ago, the Flyers' season ended at Wells Fargo Center against the Washington Capitals. It stopped the car from traveling down the road, full stop right away. 177 days ago, we were sitting in Wells Fargo doing exit interviews. Tonight, the game is back on the ice. Games that matter. The Flyers in Vancouver to drop the puck on the 24-25 season and get it all underway against the Canucks tonight, a team they went 2-0 against last year. It's Jason Myrtetus, Brian Smith, and we are beyond thrilled to be starting another season. And Smitty, let's not bury the headline. We're beyond thrilled because there's a player that's going to suit up for the Flyers, number 39, that's got everybody, myself, yourself, very excited about what's to come this season. No doubt about it. And the other thing is, one of the big things that happened this offseason was the extension of Travis Konechny. It was a big conversation point. Do they extend him? Do they move him? He's still under a contract this season for this year. New contract will kick in next year. But TK, drafted here, developed here, turned into an all-star here, right back at it tonight. Yeah, no doubt about it. Sam Ersson will get the start tonight. He comes into this season in a different role. He didn't come into last season expecting to be the NHL starter. It ended up there. He's still there now. He's got a couple of guys, including guys that aren't even in the AHL or the NHL, breathing down his neck, whether that's Ivan Fedotov or Alexei Kolosov, McAnemy, who's down with the Phantoms as well. And then you can go all the way back to Zavragin or into Carson Bjarnason. It's not a safe position he's in, but he's got some control. Yeah, it's one of the biggest storylines of this season where we're trying to figure out if he's a guy that can carry that mantle and be a true number one goaltender in the NHL. A lot of guys say they want it, but it's not as easy as you think it would be when you get it. So we'll see if Sam Ersson can do that. Let's get to the line combinations. Top line for the Flyers tonight, it's going to be Sean Couturier playing with Travis Konecny and Mishkov on that line. That line's going to generate some offense. The second line will be Morgan Frost, Owen Tippett, Morgan Frost, Owen Tippett, and Tyson Forster. That line will be able to generate offense as well. It'll be interesting with Tippett on the off wing there. The third line for the Flyers is Jetlachenko, Joel Farabee, and Bobby Brink. I have Farabee scoring 30-plus this year.
Yeah, I mean, again, all these guys are the same guys, but they're a year older, a year more experienced, and
hungry.
Again, I think, they are hungry, and with the addition of Michkov to the top line, that pushes some talent down to those second and third lines. So again, it's where are guys slotted, how do they play off of each other, and how can they make each other better?
The fourth line will be Ryan Poehling, Garnet Hathaway, and Scott Lawton. D pairs will be Sanheim and York, and then we'll see what the other four are between Johnson, Ristolainen, Zamula, and Drysdale. Goaltender will be Sam Ersson. All right, stay tuned. Tim Saunders, Todd Fedoruk, they're in Vancouver. They've got the countdown to face-off, followed by all the first period action, and that's coming up right after this. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day on the Flyers Broadcast Network.